Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have you stand with your feet about hip distance apart. And you may want to have your roller close by because we're going to do a little bit of work for your toes. Let me see, I'm going to stand in kind of a sunny spot so you can see. And one of our assessments today is going to be a Katie Bowman toe lift. And the reason why this is important is that the flexibility and the mobility of your feet is of supreme importance to your gait and your ability to stand and not tip over. So I'm going to ask you to just think about the weight of your body on your feet, and you have your roller by your side just for a little extra balance should you need it. And I want you to think about just taking the big toes off the floor. So all the other toes are going to stay down and just the big toes lift. Can you lift just the big toes?
Yeah.
Well, that's hard.
Yeah.
You have to think about it.
You have to think about it, yeah. And then let's see if you can lift the big toe and the second toe. So the big toe stays up and just the second toe and the big toe. And so now the pinky toe and the 3 toes on the outside of the foot. And then see if you can keep the last 2 toes on the floor and pick up the first 3 toes. And then see if you can pick up all the toes except the pinky toe. And then all 5 toes are off the floor. And so this is what it feels like. There you go. This is what it feels like when you are in a balanced position on your foot because you have weight on the ball of the foot and the heel. And then I'm going to ask you to replace the pinky toe, and then the 4th toe, and then the 3rd toe, and then the 2nd toe, and then the big toe. And what ends up happening for me is my toes kind of curl when I do that. But ideally, I'd like the toes to stay straight and just lift 1 toe at a time, up and down, away from the floor. Okay, so that's one of our assessments today. Just understand the ease with which you can do that. And let's go ahead and do a melt method assessment while we're here. Arms are by your side, and you're going to close your eyes to turn off your common sense of sight unless that makes you feel a little tippy. And I want you to consider whether or not both feet are weighted to the floor, or do you feel like one foot feels a little bit heavier than the other one? And notice if the body weight is forward on the balls of the feet or back on the heels. Notice you're on the outside of the foot or the inside of the foot. And you can travel up the shin, think about your knees. Notice if the knees are pulled into the joint or do they feel like they're soft. Come up to the quadriceps, notice if you have a tight thigh muscle, and come back to the gluteus and notice if you're holding that under tension as well. Okay, so that's going to be your assessment. Take your foot onto the ball. I always start with my right foot, and I'm going to have you tip your body weight from side to side. So what I'm going to do today is the mini softball foot treatment, but we're going to add a little bit of work for the big toe mound. From here, both feet settle down into the floor. I'm going to bend my knees and rotate my spine. I'm going to come on back up when I'm ready. You're all doing such a great job with this, such experts. And I'm going to take the ball into my big toe mound, where I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on the ball. And I'm going to take my big toe and I'm going to pull it away from the second toe. So I'm giving myself more space in between the toes, the first toe and the second toe. Just give it a good pull. So I'm not lifting it up towards the ceiling, I'm pulling it out towards the side. Ideally, the outside of my toe is in line with the outside of my foot. I'm putting pressure on the big toe knuckle from underneath, so I'm decompressing that toe. From here, I'm going to have you come off the ball and very simply just move it back to position number 5, where I'm going to take a focused breath and I'm going to push down onto the ball. Take another focused breath at position number 5 and come back onto the left foot where you go into your glide. Bring the ball up onto the heel. When you're ready, bring the ball back to position number 5. Send a little focused weight onto the ball as you shear into position number 5, scratching the bottom of your foot against the ball. Hold the ball still, hold your foot still. Take a focused breath. Take your body weight off of your ball and let's rinse across the ball of the foot And again, as I put pressure on the ball, I'm going to think about taking my big toe and I'm going to pull that more towards the side as I pivot on my heel and then release. So I'm kind of holding that space in between the big toe and the second toe as I rinse across. So we're doing a little fusion between Katie Bowman and Sue Hitzman today. I'm going to rinse down the bottom of my feet. I'm going to work on that same thing where I'm going to pull that big toe away from the second toe as I bring the ball back towards my heel. I'm rinsing the bottom of my foot and I'm going to continue to kind of pull on that big toe. One foot might be a little bit looser and one foot might be a little bit tighter as you pull that big toe. So this foot for me is a looser foot. I'm going to do each knuckle and then long bone. From here, I'm going to do a little bit of friction. And then when we're ready, let's go ahead and bring your feet into a hip distance position. Okay, let me position myself so you can really see, come a little bit closer. So I'm going to come into spinal flexion. It's a little hard with this camera angle, but what I want to do is just show you how when I flex my spine, that the arm length changes on this right side. So I'm going to drop my chin, just watch here for a moment, pull my belly button in, and I'm flexing my spine. I'm not going to move my hips back, and I'm not going to come down very far. It's not about coming into a hip hinge, but you should be able to see that my right hand comes longer than my left. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's because I have flexed my spine and brought fluid from my foot through the spinal column. So go ahead and try that if you haven't already. Remember, you're not pushing your booty back out to the window behind you. You're just flexing your spine. Good, nice. I can see Julie's right hand is longer. Her right arm is longer. And Martha's nice and juicy. She's got a little bit more length over on the right, but she's pretty good. And look at Teresa Edge, nice. Nice, Barbara, I can see it. Good, and then when you're ready, restack. So did you notice the change? Did you feel like one side feels a little sticky than the other side?
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's such a great party trick. So what we're doing is we're sending the fluid up through the spinal column. Okay, let's go ahead and do the same technique over here on the left side. So I'm going to take the ball underneath my foot and I'm going to tip from side to side, establishing tolerable pressure of the ball into my foot, softening through that plantar fascia, that tougher layer of connective tissue that somewhat resembles the fascia that you have at the back of the thigh, the hamstring muscle. From here, both feet are going to settle into the floor, bend your knees, rotate your spine. You're experts with this foot treatment. It's really fluid and easy. Everybody looks like they know exactly what to do. And come on back up when you're ready. We're going to do a position point press into the big toe mound. So that would be position number 2. I'm going to put pressure on my ball and then I'm going to pull that big toe away from the second toe. And I'm just going to hold it there for a moment. I'm just going to give it a good stretch. Ideally, the outside of this toe is in line with the outside of my foot. And I worked with a physical therapist one time and I said, how come it's so much easier to pull that toe away once you have the ball under your foot? And she says, well, you're putting the knuckle in the right place to get maximum movement of that toe knuckle. From here, I'm going to release that and I'm going to take it back to position point number 5, where I'm going to take a focused press. And then I'm going to come back onto my right leg where I'm going to go into my glide. So just exploring that tissue at position 5. I'm on my heel. I'm going to come back into 5. I'm going to send a little bit of body weight on my left foot to shear across position 5. Hold the body still, take a focused breath. Release the ball, the fluid starts to pool into position number 5. I'm going to take the ball back to my big toe mound where I'm going to do kind of basically a position point press, but I'm also going to rinse. So I'm kind of fusing together Katie Bowman, and I feel my hands kind of open out when my toes open. Great, and then go ahead and rinse down the bottom of your foot. Remember to ideally look across the room as you do that. And don't forget to rub your head and pat your stomach. You've got a lot going on when you do this. So I'm trying to keep that toe kind of pulled away as I rinse. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of friction. My thigh is going to shake. That's what pulls that fluid up into the spinal column to give us that really cool opportunity to flex, to get more mobility through the spine. When you're ready, take the ball underneath the right foot and let's do a quickie friction right here. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and reassess. You might like to have your roller. So my feet are hip distance apart. And let's just talk about the melt method assessment first. So if you noticed one foot was heavier into the floor than the other one, do you notice now that the feet are more evenly weighted? That would be ideal. If you notice that you had more body weight on the balls of your feet or back on the heels, if you had weight on the outside or the inside of the foot, ideally it feels nice and balanced and stable. Use even weight on the bottom of your foot. If I track up my shin and think about my kneecap, I actually feel quite neutral and somewhat relaxed. There's no tension in the gluteus and the quadricep. From here, think about your toes, and now let's go ahead and lift the big toe.
Ooh, I can do it.
We have a formation of 4 airplanes flying overhead. It's kind of cool. Okay, so does anybody notice that it's easier to take the big toes off the floor?
Yes.
Oh.
Hey, I can do it.
Yay, cool. And then we're going to take the second toe. And I really get a sense that the third toe is actually pushing into the mat, which I didn't notice before. And as I lift that third toe, then I'm feeling my last 2 toes. And then I'm going to take my fourth and then ultimately my pinky, and then see if you can bring them back down onto the floor one at a time. Good. So that's a great little way to stimulate more fluid in through the knuckles and tissues of your feet so that you'll get a little bit more mobility as you walk. So very, very nicely done with that. Let's go ahead and do spinal flexion one more time. Arms are by my side, pull your belly button in, drop your chin, and just round forward. Remember, you're not taking your booty back. You're keeping your ankles, your knees, and your hips stacked. Your eye gaze is going to come kind of towards your thighs. And it's not about how far can you get to the floor. It's just about feeling the length of the back of the body. If you want to hinge back with your hips and come all the way to the floor, you're more than welcome to do that. From here, when you're ready, let's have you lie on your back and we'll do a rest assess, and then we'll come onto the roller for the rebalance sequence. So rest assess is also known as, I'm going to change my camera position here because I can, oops, I didn't mean to turn it off. There we go. Now I can see you. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through this today. So you're going to lie on your back, palms are turned up towards the ceiling, the arms and legs are long. It's rest assess, also called anatomical 0. If you have any pain, your assessment is done, you're finished. But we're going to think about the 4 areas of the body that have a tendency to hold on to dry connective tissue or stuck stress. The shoulders, shoulder blades, the diaphragm, the rib cage, the back of your pelvis, and the hamstring muscles. So we start with the shoulder blades. Ideally, they feel wide and flat on the floor. You might notice that they feel pokey into the floor. If they're pokey, then you have dry connective tissue around those shoulder blades. From here, take a finger, poke it into your belly button, draw a line straight through their body. And you're exploring the weight of the ribs or the flexion of the thoracic spine. And so ideally, it feels like it's weighted to the floor here. And if you don't feel that, then it's arched away and you have hyperextension of the spinal column. Go ahead and take your finger out, travel through the hips. Notice the weight of the body, ideally on the butt cheeks. And you might notice that it's not quite at the butt cheeks, but maybe it's up a little higher on the back of your pelvis, or perhaps down a little bit lower towards the tailbone. Just notice how you feel. And then from here, you're going to think about the hamstring muscles. So ideally the hamstrings are weighted to the floor, but you might notice that they're lifted away. So just ask yourself if you have 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these common areas of imbalance, and know that that can lead to chronic compensation and eventually pain if you do explore and experience those misalignments. So the last thing that we can do here is divide the body in half, right and left. Ask yourself if you feel longer and heavier on one side. And if you do, then you know that the autopilot is not connecting well from the nervous system to the center of gravity in the pelvis to all of the joints of the body. When you're ready, roll over into a shoulder, come on up to sitting, and let's get you on the roller for the rebalance sequence. The folks across the canal are getting ready to take off on their boat.
Oh, that's so cool.
So you might hear a little bit of noise. When I make your recording today, I will do it inside because it's a little noisy out here today. Okay, so you're going to be on the roller in the rebalance sequence. Your head is completely down on the roller. And I'd love for you to really feel like you've got this one memorized. So we talked about the fact that there are 4 common areas of imbalance in the body. That's something you can memorize when you do your rest assess, right? The shoulder blades, the bottom of the rib cage, the pelvis, the back of the thighs. In the rebalance sequence, just consider that there are essentially 3 moves that create the foundation of the rebalance sequence. You're going to have your palms down on the floor, forearms and elbows are down. And what Julie said at the beginning of our class, just notice that the back of the shoulders are heavy and you get a nice passive stretch across the front of the chest. The first component of the rebalance sequence with the MELT method is gentle rocking. So go ahead and allow the body weight to tip gently right and left. Gentle rocking sends more fluid through the spinal column, always a good thing. Get you used to being on the roller so you don't fall off. And if you do, you're in really good company. I've lost some really good people that way. 30 to 60 seconds on the roller here in this position. Come on back to center. And we'll move on to the second foundation of the rebalance sequence, which is tuck, tilt, and neutral. So bring your hands onto your pelvis, heel of the hand on the hip bone, fingertips to the pubic bone. Tuck the pelvis. By taking the pelvis low onto the roller, you'll feel the low back curve drop down on the roller. You'll feel the thoracic spine on the roller. The heel of the hand goes down, the tips of the fingers lift up, just another cue. And then from here, you go into the tilt position. It's the opposite in terms of movement. It's an arch in the spine. The tips of the fingers will drop, the heel of the hand will lift. You might notice a big change here. You might notice that you're a little tight and sticky here. Whatever is right is right. That's just where you're starting. So go back into the tuck. I personally find that this is the best way for me to do it. I hope that you'll agree. I'm back in my tuck position and I'm thinking about my spinal column. I'm asking myself to notice the weight on the low back curve and then travel up the spinal column, notice the weight on the thoracic and keep the weight there on the thoracic, but ease the weight off of the low back curve. It's going to be a small movement, just a tiny little adjustment. And then what I noticed for myself anyway, is that I still feel like I'm in a little bit of a tuck. So I bring my tips of fingers down onto the floor, engage my core and reset my pelvis. So just a little quick lift and lower. And that's typically enough for me to get a little more towards the tailbone. You could bring your hands back onto the pelvis and just feel that the heel of the hand and the tips of the fingers are now fairly level in this position. It looks different for everybody, but that's kind of a general assessment. Okay, so the last component for the rebalance sequence is the 3D breath breakdown and the 3D breath. So one hand to the chest, one hand to the belly. Take a couple of breaths here, breathing in through the nose to filter out any dust or allergens, and then exhaling through your mouth. Just make it a nice, gentle, easy breath. Noticing the hands are moving, notice the ribs are moving up to the ceiling, but also back down into the roller. When you're ready, hands to the sides of the rib cage and the elbows will drop down to the floor. And take a couple of breaths with your hands on the sides of the ribs. Just give me 2 or 3 of those breaths. Inhaling through the nose, warming the air as it comes into your body. Exhaling through the mouth, just feeling that movement of the ribs wide into your hands. And of course, that's ideal, right? Some of us have a little stuck stress. You'll actually explore that today. In the rib cage, you might notice you'll get a little bit more movement after we've done a side bend. From here, one hand to the throat by the collarbones, the other hand way down to the pubic bone. Everybody looks so good. I can tell that you're very comfortable with these directions. You're really understanding the moves. Take a couple of breaths here. You'll feel both hands move away from the midline of the body. You might notice there's still a little gentle rocking as you go from side to side. It's totally fine. So the last thing that we do here is the 3D breath. So hands go onto your belly, take a focused breath in through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, and give me a noisy exhale as you do that. The noisy exhale will slow down the rate of the exhalation, give your body a little bit more time to find the deep core stabilizers, specifically looking for the one that goes from your belly button all the way around the spinal column, all the way around your body to the spinal column. You'll feel that waistline get a little smaller. Once you find that 3D breath, go ahead and turn off your noisy exhale and return your breath pattern to something that's a little more autonomic, a little bit less underneath your conscious control. So those are the three components, right, to the rebalance sequence. I usually do finish off as Julie is now with another little gentle rocking from side to side. Just feels nice to kind of finish up. Come on back to center whenever you're ready. Lengthen one leg and keep that heel on the floor. So just tip over towards that leg that's on the floor. That's it. Yep. So then you'll just come, Martha, onto that left side. Yep. Whatever leg is lengthened, lengthen your leg on the left. There you go. And then just let that left hip and left shoulder just slither off the roller. There you go, towards the fireplace. Yeah, nice. And just push the roller away.
Okay.
And lie on your back. You got it. That's why we're here. And again, I'm in gallery mode. I kind of like that because I can see everybody. If you don't like that and you just want to see me, that's fine. I wouldn't understand why you'd want to look at me today. So we're going to go ahead and re-explore those masses and spaces. Palms are turned up towards the ceiling. The arms are lengthened by the side of the body, giving yourself a moment to reconnect. Thinking about the shoulder blades, ideally a little wider and heavier. Take a finger, poke it into the belly button and noticing the weight of the ribs. If it's not right down on the floor, are you moving a little heavier in that direction? Take your finger out of your belly button, travel down into the pelvis. Notice if you feel like you're on your butt cheeks, that would be ideal. And then the back of the thighs, good, Martha. Ideally, the back of the thighs are weighted to the floor. And then we divide the body in half, right and left, and we're just noticing if we feel like we're longer and heavier on one side, or do we feel like we're more symmetrical, which would be ideal. When you're ready, roll over into a shoulder, come on up to sitting. Great. How'd you feel about that? Pretty good?
Yep, that was
Okay,
great.
good. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of work for what Sue Hitzman calls the tail triangle. And she's got a really funny picture in my workbook. She's got her butt in the, in the picture. So I don't want to offend anybody, but that's what I'll do. If you can see on me, it's right there. Okay, so that's where we're going to work today. And we're going to break this up a little bit. If we were in a class together, as I mentioned at the beginning, I would be moving around the class. And so you'd still be able to see me regardless of whether you're lying on your side or on your back. But because we're on this call and we're kind of locked into this position, we're going to kind of break this melt method sequence up a little bit. So let me change the position of my camera. There, so you can see me from above, right? Okay, so what I want you to do, God bless you, is take your roller across your mat, and most of you are on carpeting. Nobody's on like a hardwood floor, right? So you'll be fine if we end up coming off your mat a little bit. And the pool is over there, so I won't fall in the pool today. Okay, I'm gonna sit myself kind of right in the middle of my roller. My knees are bent and my feet are flat to the floor. God bless.
Yeah,
I have the sneezies today too.
Yeah.
So
this is our regular roller, right?
The round roller. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take my hands back behind me. Now, if I push my feet into the floor kind of heavy, I'll feel my arms holding the weight of my body. But what I want to do is actually have kind of a light touch on my feet. And so now the core of my body has to fire. Did you notice that? Push your feet down, you'll feel it in your arms. Yeah. And then light feet, the core of the body will fire. And that would be better if the feet were light and the core did the work. And I'm just going to move my knees forward towards my camera, and then I'm going to pull my knees away. So my feet are staying down. That's it, Julie. That looks really good. And you're on your roller, right? The way the camera is situated, Julie, I can't see the roller. It looks like you're just sliding on the floor. No, it's perfect. You got it. Looks great. So this is what we call the tail triangle. This is where your SI joints are. This is where you meet your tailbone. And from here, I'm going to ask you to bring your knees a little bit over to the left side. So now we're on the SI joint. We don't do a whole lot here. And then we're going to take you a little further over to the left. So I'm going to take my hands onto my right leg or onto my thighs, and I'm going to position my torso so that I'm leaning a little bit more over towards the left. And this is the side hip. And I'm going to kind of keep you upright. I've done this a couple of different ways before where I actually bend my left elbow, but I'm going to keep you upright today. Anybody notice that when they move the roller across the back of the hip that they feel a little tenderness back here?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we don't have to keep rolling over it, kind of come and find it and then just go smaller and smaller. So if you find that tenderness, as I have, I'm just going to move smaller and smaller. If it's intolerable, then move the roller somewhere else where it's going to be more comfortable, because it's not about torturing yourself. So I'm going to hold the roller right here. I'm going to hold my body still, and my left knee is going to drop towards the floor, and then I'm going to pull my left knee back up so I come down and lift. You could make an assessment here on how easy it is to lift and lower this left leg. So again, this side of my body is a little tighter, so I'll feel like I have to use a little bit more energy to pull that up. This is the shear technique, by the way. So the roller is still and the leg is moving, and that's going to change the shape of the tissue. So let's just have you hold it here, and you're going to come on back up to the tail triangle. So your hands are back behind you. And thank goodness we only have two sides. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. Feet are light on the floor. I'm just going to move my hips onto the roller and back up. Tail triangle, just a nice little glide. I'm going to move my knees slightly to the right. Here's my SI joint. Again, we don't do a lot here. The concern is that the sciatic nerve is not too far from this spot you're pressing, so we don't do any shearing here. But I am going to stop, and I'm going to bring my left hand across my thighs and orient my knees just a little further over to the right side, so that I'm getting into what we call the deep side hip. The deep side hip is where the piriformis.
I'm in here, sweetie.
Well, thank you, honey.
Okay, I gotta finish this right now first. I'm doing my exercise. Can you wait for me?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I'm in where the piriformis is. If you do the figure 4 stretch, that's the muscle that you feel when you do the figure 4. There's gemellus and obturators in here. These are similar to the rotator cuff of your shoulder. So I'm going to go smaller and smaller until I stop. You know, if you found an area to work on, make it tolerable for yourself. I'm going to hold the weight of my body still. I'm going to drop the right knee down, and I'm going to lift it back up. I'm still engaging my core. To me, it feels easier on this side. Does anybody notice that one leg moves a little bit easier? Yeah.
My left moved easier.
Oh, so you're the opposite of me. Yeah. We're like bookends, Teresa.
Yeah.
So then I'm just going to hang it right here, and I'm just going to wait. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to have you actually come off of the roller. And again, this is where I would just move around in the room so that you could continue to see what's going on. We're going to do two techniques with the roller on this side. One of them is a side hip glide and shear, and then the other one is a hip side bend. So I'm going to take myself into the position for both of those techniques. The roller is off to my left, my knees are bent, and I'm over onto the right. I'm going to keep the roller kind of snug to my body, My left hand is going to come onto the floor, and I'm going to just kind of walk myself away from my roller and bring myself up onto my roller. My knees are going to stay bent. Okay, let's talk about that. So if you're starting to notice that there's pain already, is it in your side? Is it in your back of pelvis?
No, just more on my hip.
Okay, so can you roll forward a little bit?
Okay, there you go.
Okay, great. So the move is done with the pelvis oriented forward slightly. Those of us that have done strength techniques, Julie, this will resonate with you. It's like that hip stack and roll forward. So we're going to roll forward just a little bit. My forearm on the left is going to stay right here in this position. So I am bracing myself up. I'm going to lengthen through my top leg, and I'm going to use that leg to move myself against the roller. So in other words, I'm on the side of my pelvis, the left side for me, and I'm just allowing the roller to move a little bit up and down. Teresa Edge noticed that there was a place that was particularly tender. If you want, you can come forward a little bit and see if you can find a place that's tolerable. Go smaller and smaller until you stop. And then what I want you to do is come all the way down onto the floor. From here, it's my bottom leg that's going to move. And all I'm going to do is straighten the leg and bend. I'm just going to hold this body shape nice and still. And I'm just going to hold it here. And then just hang out and wait. The next technique that we're going to do, how are we doing? Are we okay?
Yeah.
So far, so good. The next technique is to take your top arm and bring it over the top. Let's see if you can see me a little bit better if I move down. And I'm just going to grab my elbow. So my left hand is grabbing my elbow. This top leg is long. And I'm going to actively pull my right elbow away from my side body. So you're getting a little bit of a rib side bend here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Take your pubic bone and pull it forward into a tuck. You can reach the top arm nice and long. So I'm taking this arm away, pulling it away. Inhale and exhale for 3. My big toe is on the floor. I'm pulling that leg away from the hip while I actively pull on this right elbow to lengthen the tissue on the side of my body. I'm going to inhale and exhale for 3. I'm using what we call the 3D breath, which is what you explore when you're on the roller. After you've done the 3D breath breakdown, we do the 3D breath. And one more time. From here, I'm going to bend my right elbow and put my right hand onto the floor. I'm going to roll forward and pull myself up. When you're ready, it's a really hard one. It's a really hard one, which is why this is not the first class that we're doing together. It's the third one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to bend my knees, and I have the roller snug up against the side of my body. I'm going to take my right hand down onto the floor, and I'm going to pull myself up onto the roller. I'll go ahead and bend that elbow, and I'm going to keep myself lifted in this position. And I'm going to lengthen through this top leg. There's not a whole lot of pulling or stretching on this top leg. The hips are coming forward slightly to give that SI joint a little bit room. If you feel that the SI is very tender, this is not your move. Okay, you just take a little break. I'm moving against the roller on the side of my pelvis, and it feels very different for me on this side. It's a little bit more tender. So I'm going to go smaller and smaller. I'm going to find that barrier So that area where the tissue is dry, sending little messages of pain in through the body. I don't have to keep sending those messages of pain. Just pick a spot that feels a little bit more comfortable, smaller and smaller until you stop. When I go into my shear technique, I prefer to be down and in a bit more relaxed state. I'm going to bend and straighten through my bottom leg. And that's my shear. Keep that nice and heavy. When we do hip side bend, sometimes the side of the leg is so tight that the foot can't find the floor. Is anybody noticing that? Yep, Teresa, I'm sorry, that's Julie raised her hand. So there's so much tension on the side of the body, the gluteus minimus, medius, the tensor fasciae lata are so tight. Sometimes from sitting, these muscles get really tight. So give yourself opportunity to take some time with this so that the tissues will just naturally lengthen out on their own and the foot will find the floor. Okay, the next thing that we did was we took this top arm and we brought it right over. The right hand is going to grab sort of where my bicep is, and I'm going to actively give that a little bit of a pull. My top leg is pulling away, the big toe stays on the floor. Tuck your pelvis, the pubic bone's coming forward. So we're pulling through the ribs and we're lengthening through the leg. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole side of the body. From here, you're going to inhale and exhale for 3. Hold your tuck too, if I didn't already mention that. The pubic bone's coming forward in a tuck. Inhale and exhale for 3. Sink that belly button in towards the spine to engage the core. And then when we're ready, we're going to take the left hand into the floor, roll forward a little bit, and come on back up.
Oh,
I know.
that left side was tight.
Exercise.
Okay. So let's finish you off. Finish up.
Finish us off.
We're almost done. If you want to wind up the hair, you can.
Yeah, let's see what
Guys,
happens.
please shoot me.
Oops. Let's see.
Ooh.
Let's see if this is better. Yeah, I'm going to do the other position. Sorry. I'm going to do a little mermaid before we go. Okay. All right. So this is the Melt and Mat Pilates repertoire. You can position yourself any way that's comfortable. So if you like to sit cross-legged as opposed to sitting in that sort of delicate little mermaid position, if one position is easier for you, then by all means, go ahead and explore that. I'm going to take my roller across my mat. I'm going to reach up. My roller, by the way, is on my right side, and I'm going to reach up with my left arm. And I'm going to side bend towards my roller. And I'm going to push the roller away as I go. Nice, good. Really feel like you could take the side of your rib cage and lift it up towards the ceiling. Inhale to stay, exhale, pressure on the right forearm as you roll back. Beautiful. Replace your hands. You're going to move your right hand over towards your shin over on the left, and you're just going to lean into the left side. And then let's do it one more time. So I'm going to take my hand onto my roller. I'm going to reach up with my left arm, reach right up towards the ceiling. And then side bend through the waistline and the rib cage, and the roller will move away. Beautiful. Inhale and stay. Exhale to press into the roller and restack. Dropping that left arm. Reach over with the right and give yourself a little side bend. Beautiful. Same thing but different on the other side, because we know the two sides of the body feel very different. So again, you could do it sitting, I think I'll do it cross-legged this time just to show you the difference. And I'm just gonna have my hand on my roller, gonna reach up with my right arm, and I'm gonna keep this kind of arched arm. I don't have to reach all the way to the ceiling. It can be soft through the elbow. And I'm gonna side bend over towards the left. And I'm thinking about opening up those ribs as I push the roller away. I'm looking right into the camera, so I'm looking right at you. I'm going to inhale and stay, exhale to push into the roller to restock, and then just bring your arms over towards that right side and give it a little pull. And release. We'll do it one more time. You'll inhale to start, exhale to side bend. Don't let me rush you. Hang out here for a nice inhale, and as you exhale, press your forearm into the roller to restock. Come over to the side and side bend. Good. How often do we get a chance to practice side bend? Not too often. Good. Okay, one quick reassessment. Coming onto your back. Palms are turned up towards the ceiling. Arms and legs are long. I know. I heard that, Teresa Luciano. So, how do those shoulder blades feel? Raise your hand if you feel like they're wide and flat right now. Beautiful, great. Take a finger, poke it into your belly button. Draw a line through your body. Raise your hand if you feel like there's a little bit of weight on the rib cage. Great, nice, Martha. How about you, Julie? Yeah, okay, great. And then how about the butt cheeks? Does it feel like the butt cheeks are weighted to the floor? Raise your hand if you feel the butt cheeks. Teresa Luciano, I can just barely see your fingers. Good. And then ideally the backs of the thighs. How do they feel today? Are they weighted to the mat? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, it looks like we did some really good work today. A nice change from the beginning of class to the end. So again, we did a little bit of work through the side of the body. It's a really cool place to explore. We do an awful lot of sitting these days, and the muscles on the side of the hip can get kind of tight and sticky. So nicely done. Roll over into a shoulder, come on up to sitting, and don't forget next week to bring either your bathrobe tie or if you have a flex band, go ahead and get that. And I'm going to send you a replay today. And I'd also love to just talk about what you'd like to do next. And I have a couple of options that I'd like to share with you. So that'll be in your email, okay?
Just a strap.
All right.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's a great strap, Martha. That's going to be perfect. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be fancy.
Yeah, but if you don't have a strap, that's a nice substitute.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Anybody that hasn't made an appointment, you know, I'd love to talk to you. It doesn't matter if you've already had one. So just make sure that you do that. I'll send the Calendly link or just text me and say, you just want to have a chat. And I'm happy to talk to you about anything. But of course, my goal is to help inspire you to take good care of yourself and to maybe integrate some healthy habits into your repertoire. Use Barbara as your example. She's a good one to instigate healthy habits. Much love to you all. Have a great day today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
All right,
Wendy.
thank
Have
you,
a great
Wendy.
day.
Good work, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.